Welcome to the first episode of Jest Out of Jurisdiction. Myself and my colleague will be providing you with stories that we've accumulated over the years of our years of service as first responders and police officers and law enforcement in different jurisdictions. The stories we'll be focusing on, though, will be more on the lighter side, the more comedic side, things that we've done that were funny or seen that were funny.
Or we've seen things in the past or seen things in the future. We don't know what they are. We've seen ghosts. We've seen all kinds of things. We'll get into those stories as we have guests on, as we have different law enforcement and first responders throughout our that we know. Plus, we want people to reach out to us and tell their story from all over the U.S. I know I've got friends still down in San Diego when I was in the Marines, so I've got law enforcement friends out there, South Carolina, some different places. So I want to hear from everybody, and that's what we're going to try to do. My name's Travis Dotson. I'm a 22-year veteran of the London Police Department. I've recently retired and came back as a school resource officer because why not? They pay way too much, so hey, I'll do it. What you gotta do?
Yeah.
You have to.
You're retired. You're a hired gun at this point.
I am a hired gun. And sadly, I hate to get that reputation because I'm on my third agency and I've only been retired a year. So what do?
You got to go where the money's at.
You have to chase that dollar at this point.
Absolutely.
I'm only about me now and sending kids to college. But yes, that's where I'm at.
I'm Dylan Hampton. I have 6 years experience as law enforcement on the street as a patrol unit. My credentials are not nearly as impressive as Travis's here, but
I didn't get into them. I didn't want to brag.
It's a good thing. I'm hiding under the table now. I'm currently working with a private security agency, L4 Security. You guys should check them out if you have any security needs. Sounds
like a commercial right there.
Yeah, little plug. Yeah, you know. Maybe they'll send some money our way.
Maybe, hopefully.
I doubt it, but
you can only try.
Yeah, I know the owners pretty well, so we'll see. So our motto here is, life is way too short in this field of work to take everything too seriously. So that's why I said we're going to give you some stories that are not just tactical, high speed, low drag, and usually when we're talking about high speed, low drag, it's completely on the other spectrum anyways.
Yes.
So
yes, we there's a lot of podcasts, there's a lot of vlogs, there's a lot of things like that are out there with the high speed stuff. And those are true, but there's more truth in the silliness that we've seen.
Absolutely.
And the things that we've done. We're not going to be name dropping people because we don't want sued. But we will tell some funny stories that's happened to mostly us. So we'll definitely edit out stuff for sure.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to mess up people. We're not going to find you guilty on this podcast.
No. And some of these guys are still working in the jobs that they're in. So we can't. Some of these stories we won't be able to give agencies. We won't be able to give names. We'll just give you what happened.
Absolutely. So join us. We're going to try to do these at least once a week. I know that we'll drop these once a week. If we're going to try anyway. That's the goal, is to do a weekly podcast where we have guests on from all over, and we just have fun and not take life so serious sometimes, and just tell stories that will hopefully make you laugh or just see a different side of law enforcement. So many times when I'm dealing with people, especially kids, as an SRO, they have no idea what I look like outside of that uniform. So if they see me out and about, they're like, they think I sleep in that. So it's interesting to see the human side of an officer and the things that we go through, the struggles that we go through, the things that's happened to us. And we just want to keep it real with y'all.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it. There's, there is the human side, as Travis said, and we're not infallible. And I think as you listen to these episodes, you'll find that we're quite fallible.
Yeah, Some of the people we're going to have on here are possibly, they should have been comedians. They should have made a living in doing stand-up, and just great storytellers in general. So look, just we're going to have some great fun and some good guests on here, and hopefully repeated guests on some of these.
Absolutely. There's a few that we're going to have to get some video episodes also.
Yeah,
because when they tell stories, they're so animated. You've just got to watch them.
The facial expressions, the things the way they tell it, they're genius at storytelling. So we're going to have a lot of fun doing this. It'll be mostly true. Of course, we're going to change names and stuff, and always cops, just like fishermen, we're going to exaggerate some things.
Yeah.
Just for storytelling purposes. You have to.
There's going to be some embellishments, but just know that stretching. 90% of these stories are absolutely
They're based on true. It's like those movies. They're based on true stories. So we're going to, just like, it may have been colder than what we say. It might have been not nearly as many things that happened that did, but we're going to tell some fun stuff anyway.
And as we get some of these older, law enforcement guys in, I'm sure you'll hear some stories where it was uphill both ways.
Yes.
And 4 feet of snow and all those things.
They rode horses in. So we're going to have some fun. I look forward to this weekly. We've been trying to get this going for almost a year now, and just things happen. Life happens as we got just going. But here we are. We're ready to kick this off. So stay tuned.
All right. With no further ado, let's get into it. First thing I want to cover, though, is in law enforcement and, of course, the military, as Travis can tell us, is you end up with a nickname or a call sign, and it's usually not over something you did that was cool. Your call sign is usually something that you foobarred or something that really messed up. So you'll hear guests refer to me here as Flash.
Yeah, Flash. And I'll let you get in that story, but I'll tell you, look, real quickly, my call sign, my nickname is T-Dot, which is very obvious. Right. It's Travis Dotson, so the T-Dot. And then some of the guests will just call me Tennessee Department of Transportation to make a nickname, a short name, very long, because he's crazy. So hopefully we'll get past that. But that was, there was 3 Travises that worked at our agency. Each one, that we had to shorten down and figure out who's who, because, so I'm T-Dot. So let's get into the Flash. What happened there?
So, as you know, when you come out of the academy, you're very high speed. You know exactly what you're doing. You're a pro. Not really. When you come out of the police academy, you don't know anything. You're as green as baby crap. And everything I done was not the fastest. So as you kind of see, you see where this is going. So I acquired the nickname Flash in reference to the Flash because everything I did was slow.
Not just slow.
It was like,
things that should take seconds took you minutes or hours or whatever.
I mean, it's not like we would show up for coffee at 11 and I would be there at 11:30. Things happen. So it got better. I mean, as they say in law enforcement, it's, your first year, you don't know anything. Your second year, you're kind of getting your legs. By the third year, you know what you're doing. By the 5th year, you burn out.
You're ready to go find something else to do.
Exactly.
So when you do that for 20 years, it's that up and down, up and down, up and down. And luckily for me, I got to do a lot of switching in my career as far as, I was very fortunate being able to break up my career in segments like that. So I got to do some neat things. But yeah, that helped. But the Flash is here.
The Flash is here. Speedy.
So tell us some fun stories that's happened in your career, Flash. Let's start with us. So this podcast, this episode is going to be about the Flash here, about Flash and some of his funny things that's happened in his short career. I'd say 6 years is not, he's still got a lot to go.
It feels like forever.
It does, doesn't it?
But looking back on it, it's not that long. When you're in it, it does feel like forever. 6 years is a lot of experience for an officer. You're pretty experienced at that point. You're not going to see a whole lot more that you haven't seen at that point. But 6 years I've still got 19 years left if I want to continue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I may not.
Bless your heart.
Yeah, exactly. So, a lot of these stories happen. I mean, they've happened all throughout the 6 years, but the funnier stuff is more so towards the beginning of my career. And as everybody knows, you are on job training, everything you're learning, so you're going to mess up. But luckily, somebody who mentored me told me that I should start journaling early in my career. So I was like, I'll take note of that and try to make notes of stuff that I thought was either humorous or stood out. So we'll get into one of those. Have you ever been in a situation where you just got overload? You got too much going on, and
yeah, all your sensories are just firing.
Yeah, you got too many people talking to you at once. Okay. So here I am, brand new, just off PTO. For those of you who don't know what PTO is, it's your training.
Yeah, it's you're on the job training. Yeah. You've been through the academy, now you're in
like 15 weeks of PTO, FTO.
Yeah.
So,
field training. Depends on the state. We're in Kentucky, so they call it PTO here. It's FTOs. It's field training officer. It's a police training officer, whatever they want to call it.
It's when you actually learn how to do your job. Yeah. The academy really doesn't teach you anything. But
they give you the basics of getting basic report writing, basic shooting, basic fighting. It's basic training, just like the Marines, just like the Army. There's a basic part of it that you go through, and then you become, your MOS training or your skill training comes on the job. It really does.
So here I am. I'm out. I'm patrolling and working some overtime, and we're doing seatbelt detail. So with a seatbelt detail, you're just writing seatbelt tickets, and in Kentucky, it's illegal to drive or be in a vehicle without a seatbelt on. So I see this beater of a car come by. It's this little truck. It doesn't have any. He's not got his seatbelt on. He's not got any mirrors, anything like that. So I'm just like,
is this a beater or is it a hollow rocket?
Oh, it's a hollow rocket. Okay. Absolutely hollow rocket. Straight out of the trailer hood. So I'm coming down Main Street. I get behind it. I light him up. Nothing. No response from him. Nothing. He just keeps driving. Just keeps on going. So at this point, being new, my heart's racing. I'm like, I'm going to get in pursuit. Which is something that didn't happen towards the end of my career. We'll get into more of that. Those are some more stories but this guy, so he probably can't see me because, like I said, he don't have any mirrors. So he pulls into Little Caesars. I was like, okay, he's just going to find somewhere to park. He probably doesn't have insurance, doesn't want his car towed, things like that. No, he doesn't park. He pulls right into the drive-thru and stops. So I'm pretty mad at this point. So I throw it into park behind him in the drive-thru. He's right at the speaker. And I get up to his window, and he's surprised that I'm even there. So he's trying to order a pizza. So here I am. I'm telling him what's wrong. And it's like, I need your license, your registration, all that. He's talking to me. I've got the lady at the speaker who don't have a clue what's going on either, trying to get him to order a pizza. She's like, Sir, what can I get you? What's your order? Excuse me, sir. What was that? So she's harping at me in the back.
Oh my gosh! I've never stopped one in a drive-thru.
It was crazy. So finally, I just had to stop. I was like, all right, what kind of pizza do you want? And he told me. So I turn around and I order his pizza. And I was like, all right, give me your driver's license and everything.
Well, you had your priorities right.
Exactly. You got to get the food first.
That's community policing, too.
I don't even think I wrote that guy a ticket. I was so flustered. I just went back to the car and sat and went, and
did you order a pizza as well?
No.
You should have.
No, I'm sure we went and ate Mexican like we did every day.
That's hilarious. I've never stopped them. I've stopped them while they're pumping gas, pulled up and pumped gas.
Yeah,
One time, I can tell you, a good friend, great officer from early in my career. His name was John Whitehead, and he won't care if we tell this story, but we were riding together. He was the greatest at finding dope, great interviewer. I mean, he had it going on as a police officer as far as just that. And we was riding together for some reason. I was off training. We're riding down Main Street. Exactly where you ended your call is where I tried to start. Initiated a traffic stop right there, on Main Street. Guy doesn't stop. He keeps going down. We get all the way about 1.5 miles towards our, the heart of the city, like around Courthouse, where the banks and things are. And he pulls over there finally. I guess he sees me. He gets out. I'm more, I'm fuzzed up like a cat.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, what's getting ready to happen? We didn't know. He comes out. What? What'd I do? And I'm like, sir, we stopped you. It was one of them simple stops, like one headlight, maybe speeding or something like nothing major, just a courtesy, like, hey, fix it ticket. If I even wrote that, or just a warning, just say your headlight's out.
Which could easily turn into something bigger.
They always do. Early in my career, if you found a one headlighter, you were laying down dope, either marijuana or something. Always, was perfect. You're like, well, this is going to be more than just a ticket. This is going to be a marijuana. Yeah, at least marijuana.
Not to get off kilter on too much, but that brings something up that it never failed. There was always indicators, and it's indicators that you wouldn't think. Like if I found a coloring book and coloring pencils and crayons in your car, I'm finding dope.
Yeah, it's the weirdest
And the same
stuff.
for sex toys. If I find a sex toy, I'm finding dope. I mean, it's just
they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So me and John, this guy looks at me. I'm 5'9" with boots on. And this guy I'm looking up at, we're kind of like coming at each other. I was like, I'm kind of posted up on the front of my car as he comes out, and he's posturing as well. Like this is escalating quick. John gets out. He's 6'7", a monster.
Yeah, he was a big unit.
That guy turns and looks. He's looking down at me, getting ready to throw. He looks over at John Whitehead, and he's looking at his stomach and looks up. And John's like, "Do you have a problem?" "No, sir, I don't." It was. I don't even think we took him to jail. It was just one of them deals. I was like, "John, you took that. You took that fight from me, man." He said, "Did you really want to fight him?" I said, I was peacocking back then. I thought I could handle it. I was like, "Yeah, man. Why'd you do that?" Later in my career, he probably saved me a butt whipping for sure.
You never know.
You just never know anymore. But man, he sent him packing quick.
Hey, all those people that say sizes don't matter.
It does matter.
It does.
It does matter.
Absolutely.
But I remember some of these. That's what this is going to be about. We're going to do a lot of these fun stories, short stories, long stories. Well, I've got plenty. Over 22 years of just pure craziness. We've got them. So
back to I talked about finding sex toys just then. I just thought of something. We had a guy that was on FTO. He didn't last long. He was a good kid, would have made a good officer, but he just decided it wasn't for him. And there's no shame in that.
No, that's why we do that.
He got out early before, the feelings were hurt. So, I mean, actually he's probably better off than most of us were. He's smarter than we are, is really what I'm trying to say. But we had him on FTO, and I had a guy over in Kroger parking lot that had passed out. And, it just is a welfare check is what it starts out as. I get there. I'm on scene. He's passed out. His pants are unzipped. All kinds of weird stuff. He's got dope in his lap. So he's out for the count. We get him up, get him out, handcuffed. He's in the car. We're searching the vehicle and all that. We find the dope and find a penis pump. And it's greased up.
Oh, gross.
Freshly used. So
oh, Lord. I
was like, what a better learning opportunity than to hide this back where I found it and then let the new guy search and find it himself. Because you're really not a seasoned officer until you found that. So hopefully that's not why he quit. But
I remember the first one I found. It was,
yeah,
you never forget those. You're like,
no.
what is this thing? Where does that go?
There was a guy that we ran into recurringly that he carried a bag of them around, like a duffel bag. I don't know if he was like a black market salesman or what, but it was a duffel bag. It was wild. Wild.
Did he find your officer?
Yeah, he found it and was not happy about it. We thought it was hilarious, obviously, but yeah.
Always funny.
But yeah, it was disgusting. So yeah.
It's part of it.
Yeah, pranks and stuff like that we played a lot of pranks on each other.
I think that's how you get through a lot of stress. There's no more stressful job than being a police officer, dealing with the things you deal with. And we get jaded a lot of times.
We do. We get jaded, and first responders in general, as a circle or a group, you all end up with a very dark and morbid sense of humor.
Yeah.
And
it's a coping skill.
It's a coping skill. I mean, if you can't laugh about it, you're going to cry about it. So, I mean, you might as well laugh about it.
I was, my wife and I were down at the beach, and a family got in trouble on like these breakers, like those. The tide was up, and it was rough seas that day. Probably should have red flagged. It's a state park beach, and there was some, this crowded beach. We're out there. This family gets in trouble. Some kids do. The adult family members try to go rescue them. We end up going in, pulling these kids out, pulling these parents out. I'm carrying a kid up to a picnic table as the fire department's rolling in. The scuffed up knees and maybe bloody mouth or something. And, my wife's tending to them, and she's like, consulting them. And it's over. I said, where are we going to go eat now? She doesn't get, I've done that so many, and she's like, I just want to go back home or back to our hotel room or wherever. And she said, I need to process this. I've done that or something like that so many times.
You don't have time on the job to process, so you compartmentalize.
Yeah.
And you do end up processing it later. But
the processing comes to me in a different form, in a different way. And it's either through hitting a heavy bag or lifting heavy weights, something I can, but right then and there, I've done so many things like that. I don't need to process right there. I'm like, I'm ready for that next call, even though I'm on vacation.
Well, you go into work mode.
Yeah.
And work mode is separate. Yeah.
Work mode's on, and then I'm easily to come back off because a lot of times we'll wait on that next call. That next call might be crazier than rescuing drowning kids in the ocean. The next call might be, who knows what. And we don't know what. That's what's weird about first responder work.
And that's what's dangerous too, is that all that, if it's not processed by, talking to someone or, your wife or something. I was always good about going home and talking to my wife.
See, I tried to separate it. Sometimes.
And then, because she liked knowing about stuff. Now, there were some things that I didn't talk about, but just because they were, pretty heinous.
I think my wife would have made me quit.
Yeah. She understood. She was good, supportive as far as that goes, and knew the job but it helped me to get it out, I guess, and get it off my chest. But
so you fast forward that you were able to talk, and I was not. My wife is great about talking, but she's also very sensitive on that thing. So I held a lot of stuff in. Could talk to you guys. Could talk to
because we understood. You knew we understood.
But until I started going and doing some therapy and doing some things like that to get some of the post-traumatic stress. Dealing with that stuff, that's what really ultimately helped me.
It helps.
So you have to. You can't.
You got to have an outlet.
You have to, and your brain, you can't process this forever. It comes spilling out. There's so much you can file away. Brains are wired different a lot of times. I'm not saying that we're crazy.
You're desensitized,
but we have desensitized to a lot of things. So That humor comes out. And a lot of people, let's go, you went deep like something horrible, that humor. But a lot of people's worst day of their life might be a fender bender at Walmart.
Right.
I've worked thousands of those wrecks.
Oh, yeah. You could knock one of those out in 5 minutes.
So a lot of times when that happens, you get some cop that comes up there that's done this hundreds and hundreds of times. It's just like, can I have your information? And you don't get much from that officer.
No, there's not much empathy because we've seen it
so many times. So one of the things I started trying to do when I had some self-realization, like, hey, this is their worst day. This is going to take me 10 minutes at best to knock this little incident report out. And then I'm going to move to the next one and to the next one. And I'm going to forget about that. So I'm like, you know what? I got to be just more sensitive and have some empathy, because that may be the worst thing that's ever happened, especially some younger kid. And like you're like, gosh, so taking that extra little second, but folks, don't believe me. It's not because they don't care. Man, they might not, but they've worked it so many times. And you're just part of.
And on the scale
shift.
of 1 to 10, I mean, that's pretty low.
Yeah.
Low priority.
But not to that person.
No, but not to that person. It's first, on their list at that point in time. And if you were to, if that was to happen to us, which we wrecked into each other all the time.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Poor old Danny. I mean,
he's already wrecked one of our cars up at his new.
That's not agency. Surprising. That day that he 46'd out in those brand new.
46 is a wreck with injuries in.
Oh yeah, we'll have some.
We'll have to send the 10 codes out for everybody.
We'll translate for everybody, but yeah, we talk about any accident we have. Like if we fell down or something, we'll call it 40. Yeah, we 46'd out, and which brings me to another story.
That's it.
And Roby, when we get Roby on here, Roby's pretty funny at his storytelling too, and has some wild stories as well. But this is one that involves a 46, but not a vehicle 46. We were on Falls and had a burglary in progress is what we got called to. It ended up being nothing. There was nobody there, but the family's out there when we get there on scene, and doors are wide open, lights are on. They've not went inside, but they just know that somebody's in there. They heard something.
Right.
And so it's me and Roby, and we're clearing this house, and we're all tactical and slicing the pie and looking good and all this for all the stuff you're trained to do, and
you need to keep your
right.
You're supposed to stay safe,
but you've also got you've got the people watching there too, so you can't just
amp it up a little.
Exactly. And it's a good training spot. I mean, you know that nothing's in there most likely, but you can still
could be.
Yeah, could be. You never know. So we get through and clear the house. There's nothing. Nobody's been there. Nothing's been touched. Nothing's been. And this is the time of year that it's starting to get cold. The dew's settling, and you get that moss on people's steps and on their porches. And they had these beautiful, I think they're called terracotta pots or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
all the way down, filled
big
with
red ones.
Yeah, filled with ferns down there. And so we're talking to them. It's like, nothing's in there. We're cleared. We'll give you some extra patrol throughout the night just to make you feel better. And I walk down the steps, and I'm in the yard, and I was like, hey, just by the way, those steps are very slick. Watch your step. Okay. So I'm walking back to the cars, and I hear, Roby has 46 down them stairs, all the way down, and destroyed every one of those pots.
Are probably expensive. Those big ones are expensive.
Yeah, I mean it was awful.
Oh my god!
So I run back over to him, and he's trying to act like he's not hurt, and so I pick him up, and after we've done all this high speed, low drag building clearing, and he's fell on his butt and 46'd out there.
Bless his heart.
But
couldn't happen to him better.
Oh, I get him up and we walk around. He's like, I was like, let's go check round back just to make sure nothing's out there. Because I could tell he was hurting. We get to the back, he's like, mother.
just get me to my car.
Yeah. Let me lift me back. But yeah, I've laughed about that forever.
Man, you just see these people. I wasn't there on that, but I can see him, and I know his face. You know, he was so mad. I guarantee you, embarrassed because.
Well, it was turnabout fair play because the week before, the same thing had happened to me, and he'd made fun of me. And that's a rule. When something bad happens to one of the officers, you never make fun of them wrecking. You never make fun of them because it's going to happen.
It's going to come back.
We was checking an alarm up on Peel Hill, and I went up his 2-story steps, and it was dark because we worked night shift. Went up. It was slick too, and thank God those steps had railings on them. As I'm with my flashlight checking the top floor back door there, and I hit the top of those steps, and it was just slick. And my feet came out from under me. I flung my flashlight. They hollered at me, "Are you okay?" Because all they seen was my flashlight just flying through the air. Yeah. I was like, thank God that was there. But yeah, he'd made fun of me for that, and then a week later, it was his turn to crash out.
One time, we were in this at the trailer park, the big trailer park, and we were chasing this guy. It had started at one end, and I'm going to say this trailer park probably goes back a mile at least, half mile anyway. Different little road shoot-offs and an apartment complex as well. And there's some steep embankments, like where the road goes down, where they've cut out and they put trailers. And I'm going to say probably 60 feet from the top of the hill straight off, it's angled, but the grass grows on it. They mowed it. But we wore those shiny, slick shoes, right?
I hate those, man.
Oh, man.
I've busted my butt so many times in those.
So they're in this foot chase. By the time I get there, they've ran from one end to the other, down on the bottom of the hill. And they're down there. They're calling this pursuit. We sound like awesome, right? So we're running it. They're running. I'm just up on top of the hill observing. I'm like, there he comes. The backside of these people's houses, like 4 or 5 in a row along this creek. Comes right where I'm like, I can intercept this. Now I'm at the top. And I come out of my car. I was already standing out of the car, just flashlight and watching this guy run through. I take one step on that grass and I roll. Not just roll down I'm tumbling like those, it's cartoonish. But I remember I was like, I'm going to hit that trailer. I'm picking up
one
speed.
Of those snowballs that just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Oh, it was. And so I remember reaching one hand out and I caught the guy's, as I'm rolling, I have enough sense and I catch just a little bit of his pants. Not enough to do anything, but I'm just like, I'm so close. As I tumble all the way into this trailer, thump it, boom. I go into that trailer and everybody's like running by me. He's like, what did he do to you? I'm like, no.
This was me, not him.
Really bad wreck right here. I have fallen. I look back up to where my cruiser was and it was more like 100 feet. I've fallen. If it wasn't sloped a little bit, it was almost like a cliff. I was like, I was like, was that guy where all we was chasing him for was like, old warrant or something. He was, what are we doing? So they finally caught him, but I'm covered in mud. Those shoes are ruined. Those pants are ruined. I think I had to dig around for my badge. I have wrecked and left debris from our gun belts and everything all the way down there. I knew where I went because you could see it. I plowed that off and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. What am I doing chasing this guy? I could have just spotted for him like, hey, here he is.
Well, you want to be in the action. You don't want to. You don't want to be the guy that's standing there doing nothing.
No, and that gets you in a lot of trouble sometimes.
Yeah,
You're like,
exactly.
I can do this.
Yeah.
That's like me right now. I'm 48 years old trying to go box. I got lit up by everybody I've sparred with so far has beat my face bloodied up. I come home. I'm like, what? Lisa's like, you remember you're 48, right? I'm like, well, yeah, I guess.
So what
She's like, you're not 20.
Yeah. Mike Tyson, you are not.
No, I got a lot to do there. So it's fun though, but I remember one time my wife, it was a Sunday and I was off. She was like, I get a phone call from like a bunch of dispatchers and some officers were playing football up at South Laurel High School at the middle school or something. She's like, don't go. Stay home. It was a nice Sunday after church. I'm like, I'm going to go play football. She's like, when you get hurt, I don't even want to hear it when you come back through the door.
Yeah, there's that.
Instantly, when I was out there playing, having a good time, I break the end of my finger. It was like bent over weirdly. And I've still got, it's still all weird and I can't move it. Ligament damage. They want to do surgery and everything. So I'm like, hey, great idea. And I walk into the house and she's instantly looks at it. I'm like tearing up. I'm like, I really need to go to the hospital. And she was like, I don't want to hear it. So I sat down.
Yeah.
For the next, say 2 or 3 years, I don't want to hear it. I mean, it was jacked up. Luckily I went in, I take it back. I worked that evening and went in. It went straight up to the hospital and found out, x-ray and all that was broke. I was like, what an idiot.
I did my good hand.
It's not my good hand anymore. So I'm like, what am I doing? And, we're just, our egos and our pride gets in our way a lot of times, especially when they're chasing somebody that, a lot of times we're out here making split second decisions that can alter a lot of things, good or bad. We see that every day in law enforcement. But man, that's why training comes in to play and getting your mindset right, knowing, giving yourself options and not making quick, there's quick second decisions that have to be made, life or death stuff, of course. But there's things that we do sometimes that are jump too quick when we should have stepped back and
especially early on because
discern some stuff. So.
You're not really trying to make a name for yourself, but you're trying to prove yourself.
Yeah, there's a proof.
Also.
There is a proof. You've got a training officer with you a lot of times that's looking at you like, are you going to step up?
Yeah.
And and that officer's never been, a lot of times never knows.
And you're not afraid.
Where to go.
But you have to show that you're not afraid. So you're trying to be the first to do everything and not sideline. So you don't hesitation and all that.
Yeah.
And early in your career, you want to do everything. You don't ever think about the dangers. I don't know if I ever thought about, this is not a good idea. I was just like, I can probably kick this door in. And, you don't think about what's on the other side. It's like, I get to kick a door. Woohoo!
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The door is just the first obstacle.
Yeah.
And that's why we think like,
and
all right, there's our obstacle, but what's behind that door, number one, may not be something we like.
Well, and as a younger guy in the field, you want to end every call or every problem. You want to end it immediately because that's what you think. And not all of them. Some of them you can wait out, and it's better to wait out because you've got nothing but time.
Most domestic calls that I've ever been on, when I realized this, it really helped me. Most of the time, that's been spewing and brewing and building for years.
Yeah.
Longer. And then we're called there. This might be the first time that we've ever been called to that situation. And somehow we got to figure that out.
Yeah.
A year's worth of build up, of exchange, of fighting, of frustration with each other. And now you're asking two
guys that probably aren't even married that have
brand new, especially brand new guys
have no police experience, let alone
even guys that have a lot of
experience for that matter.
Yeah, and you're talking about, and I've said for years, the best, probably a well-rounded officer. It might have been one of our old chiefs talking about this. It's probably like a 30-year-old married man that's been through some stuff. So young, 20, even though you can go be a police officer at 21. You've just probably not had all the life experience to handle every call. Yeah, you get it over time. But there's things in this world that you just don't understand and you can't give advice.
Exactly.
Probably 90% of a police officer's job is giving free law advice.
Yeah.
And not just law advice, just counseling, advice.
And you've got that mentality when you first come out that you're a hammer and everything's a nail.
Yeah.
So it's you kind of till you branch out and get some experience. It's hard it's hard for a new guy just to come out unless they've come out, unless they're older.
There's things that humble you. There's things that wake you up to like, hey, I'm replaceable. Yep. I remember thinking that the first time when I resigned and took another job one time, how quickly I'm replaced with a help wanted ad.
Oh yeah.
And that was it. I thought I was, it. I thought I was the dude. And I was replaced. I was like, I'm irreplaceable. Once I figured that out, I'm like, oh, that's a humbling experience.
Yeah,
for an arrogant, cocky, prideful guy, you're like, oh,
really.
they need help.
Train a monkey to do that.
Yeah.
So
there's parts of it. Absolutely. Yeah. The human side of it is takes time and skill and just patience a lot of times. So I think that 5-year guy, even though they're burning out, is probably better suited than that 2-year. Because some of the things you learn in like Supervisor Academy or like how to guide, how to deal with the different careers. Like 20-year guy versus a 1-year guy is a total different leadership style. So supervisors have to change the way they do things. And that was humbling. Yeah. I remember one time thinking, somebody came in, they were like, check out this motorcycle I'm getting. I'm like, you're an idiot. You're going to get killed on that. Walked off. And I got to thinking, I was like, what kind of mood and what kind of supervisor and friend and mentor am I right now that I just disregarded something that a younger guy that wasn't married
was excited about.
Yeah. And I walked off like, I don't care. And you're an idiot.
Yeah.
I got to take my beliefs and what I'm thinking and where I'm at in my life and cast that aside so that way I can be a leader and show that I'm interested in you.
Right.
And once I walked straight out and I was like, oh my gosh, I failed him as a leader, as a mentor, as a officer, as a peer. Went straight back in there and said, show me that thing. And had a good conversation about that.
Yeah, that's a dangerous thing to say to a police officer.
Yep.
Yeah. Show me that thing. You might.
Yeah, that's
you might get more than you wanted.
Yeah, show me that motorcycle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we looked at it, and was able to have a better conversation than what I was leading. So it was.
You got to
humbled.
You got to cultivate people rather than you don't want robots, but you got to.
There's a time for that.
Yeah.
There's a time to where you have to step up and lead and be micromanaging and direct in your approach. There's a time where you sit back and you let them figure things out for yourself.
Too often it becomes just droned micromanaging, and that's
and there's nothing more that kills morale than micromanaging.
Exactly. And that's like you said, a 5-year guy. At my 5-year mark, I was like, I pretty well had found my sea legs, and I was confident and could go out and do just about anything. There was no calls anymore that I was like, what do I do here? It's like, this is how we're going to handle that. And then my call was the right call no matter what.
It is funny how calls before those 5 years were different, and you're like, I've never seen this before, to the calls after that are different because every call is different. But you were able to go back in your headspace there and figure out like, hey, I did this before this worked here with this person at this time.
You've got 4 years of calls to build upon. Yeah. It's a building process.
Yeah, you put it in your tool belt there, and you bring that out as needed.
I would say at 3 years, you're probably a pretty confident officer as far as there's still going to be some things that come up at 3 years. I'm going to need some help on this, but I kind of know what I'm doing. So
it depends on the.
I just need
officer.
somebody to push me in
It depends on the officer what their experiences.
We had a few that they ended up being good officers, but during FTO, I was like, I don't know, they gonna make it or not. So
I think you got to look past. A lot of times, you got to look past and know. As somebody that signed off on your training officers and signed off like, yep, they're good to go. You look at what shift they worked a lot, what officer they trained under a lot, what were they working a lot of wrecks or were they working a lot of domestics? And it's hard to, because the calls come out as they come out. It's rare in the town we live in that we go a shift without at least 10 calls.
Right. Yeah, it's a busy little town for what it is.
Yeah. So on average, I'm going to say 30 calls a shift. And that happens. Sometimes you get stuck where you're on night shift and you're answering alarms all night long and you're not getting experience on dealing with wrecks and theft reports and things like that. Or you're on day shift and that's all you're working is thefts and then you go, and the night shifts guys are getting more domestic abuse or more drunks, more things like that. So it's just, you got to spread them out, and then sometimes it's luck of the draw what call comes out.
I would say with our agency as opposed to others, because we're a corridor. I mean, you got 75 that runs through us. You've got the Parkway that runs through us.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just kind of centrally located. It's a hub, so everything gets through there. Someone who's worked 5 years at that agency is going to have a lot more experience than, say, somebody who works at, one of these other bigger agencies that doesn't see as much.
Without that major road, those cross roads coming through.
And you
catch a lot of weird stuff on the interstate.
Absolutely.
I worked interdiction for a year and a half, just straight working I-75 or I-65 over in Bowling Green on a task force. And it's shocking to see what comes through our towns that nobody has any idea.
Yeah. Speaking of, this is one of the strangest calls I ever went on. And it was about midway through my career, but we have a park here that is known for homosexual meetups.
Yes.
So, of course, I'm working night shift, and I just happened to be patrolling through the park because it's, you get bored at night. You're just driving through. And if you can find somebody stopped there, you can mess with them. I mean, that used to be the thing to do on night shift. People would stop at the duck pond, and they would be heeing and sheeing, as some people call it, and you knock on the window and ruin their night.
Jerks.
Yeah, exactly. What a bunch of jerks we were. But we get this call of an abandoned vehicle out there. Well, of course, I'm first one on scene because I'm already in the area. It's parked outside one of the shelters. I'm driving up to it, and I see this little car. All 4 doors are open. There is junk thrown out everywhere. I mean, it looks like a tornado went through it. The lights are on in it, and I was like, well, somebody's, found this car, and then they've just broke into it and stole a bunch of stuff and left. I get closer and closer, and I was like, is that a sword? There's a sword laying out of it. So, I park, and I'm like, well, this is weird. It's a katana just hanging out the passenger door. I was like, well, that's crazy. So I'm looking around, looking more, and walking up to it. I'm probably, 20, 30 feet from it now. And I was like, what is that? There is a guy. He is butt-ass naked, slumped over the console from the back seat to the front. His hind end straight up in the air.
Oh, my God.
Passed out. So I get there, I'm like, this guy, and why my mind went there, I said, this guy has Harry carried himself with this katana and killed himself right here in the middle of the park.
Yeah.
It turned out not to be that. He had met up with somebody on his little app, Tinder or Grindr or whatever he's using, and they drugged him and robbed him and left him naked. It was wild. They gave me hell over that for the longest time because it came out and I was right there.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, they're like, yeah, you was already meeting up with him. Of course,
Man, we've just, we're in a smaller town, rural part of Kentucky, and I think people would be really shocked on what's right in front of their faces sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's not Mayberry.
No.
People think this town is
They
Mayberry.
want it to
it's,
be.
Yeah, it's absolutely not.
But it's not. It's an
wild.
interesting things that happen here.
Yes.
But listen, we got a lot more stories and a lot more things we can talk about. And I think we're going to break for this episode. But stay tuned. We're going to have a whole lot more fun.
Oh yeah, I think we've got a lot more stories and a lot more things you're going to enjoy. We get off on tangents, and
that's because I have ADD.
That's going to be part of it. Yeah, well, you can't keep Travis. He's there's too many squirrels running around here for him to.
It's part of the. It's going to be part of the fun.
Yeah, that's part of his charm. So, so just stay tuned. Our next episode, we'll get into some more of our stories.
Hopefully, we'll have our first guest on.
Yeah. Don't know who it'll be just at the moment. I've got a few that we're talking to, and I think they'll be excited to come on. And they've had, if we can get Doug on.
Yeah. Doug Thomas will be
as our first guest.
That's who we're hoping to have on first.
He's got umpteen years of law enforcement experience at different sheriff's departments and police departments and out in some boondock areas that crazy things happen. He may even had encounters with Bigfoot. I don't know. So
stay tuned.